Welcome to the Jax Rudolph podcast. I'm your host, Jax Rudolph, and we are back with episode 91. As you can see, we've got a little bit of a different setup today for the show. That's because I came to visit my lovely fiancée, Gabrielle Dunn. For those of you that don't know, my fiancée and she is a fellow sport karate world champion. We're going to be talking about her career a little bit as well. And we've been doing long distance for the majority of our relationship. Because we met traveling the sport karate circuit. She's finishing school up in Connecticut. I'm down in DC, starting off medical school. But before that, I was living in California. So we've done the long distance thing for a while, which is why I'm visiting my fiance instead of living with my fiance. But we're getting married in June, and all that's going to change. And so for today's episode of the show, since I was coming to visit and since we just passed Valentine's Day, we figured that we'd do a special episode for Valentine's Day. We did the same thing last year. We're going to bring it back this year. We'll open the show by talking a little bit about Gabrielle's career and how she got started in martial arts and everything, because you guys get to hear me talk all the time. So I want to make sure we give Gabrielle a chance to tell her story a little bit. And that's going to be the show for today. Before we jump into the interview, if you will, with Gabrielle, to cover some of our segments for the Jax Rudolph podcast, as far as sport karate news this week, because we always cover that at the top of the show, really no major breaking news. We did have the Memphis Open, which is a big tournament out on the Pro Max circuit. I've been seeing some results from that tournament coming in throughout the day today. So that's obviously big news anytime that you got a big event going on. But we know that we're going to get a lot of big news coming up next week with the Compete Nationals. There's going to be some new champions crowned at that tournament. Anytime you win a NASKA overall grand championship, that's a big deal. There will likely be a Black Belt Magazine rankings update from the committee following that event. So there will be a lot of news coming up in the next week. But for this episode, we're going to talk a little bit about how Gabrielle got started in martial arts, but we're really going to spend time answering some viewer submitted questions that I've got kind of saved on my phone here. But if you guys that are watching live have any questions, feel free to drop those questions in the comments. They can be questions about our careers in martial arts, how we met, because that is a martial arts related story, or it can just be personal questions. We're just going to have fun today. Very informal episode of the podcast, just kind of hanging out with the love of my life. So without further ado, Gabrielle, I'll let you get to talking. Tell everybody a little bit of your story and how this whole martial arts thing started for you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me back on the show. It's about time, a whole year. So I was basically born into martial arts. Both of my families own martial arts schools. My first style is Junri curriculum Taekwondo. For those of you who don't know Junri, he's basically the father of Americanized Taekwondo. He brought it over from Korea. And my family actually went to Korea with him, and they even got to perform for President Bush in doing Junri's martial arts ballet, which was really, really cool. So that was kind of my first style. I wasn't really big into the competition scene until I was about 12, 13. I'd done local tournaments before, but that's when I kind of came into the big leagues, if you would say. And so I kind of got into the sport karate scene a little bit more. I started off obviously as just a traditionalist, and I started training with Sensei Sharky and Team AKA in Chicago. They have boot camps, winter camps, summer camps, and they really they take their competitors up to the next level. And I got to meet so many wonderful people. Sensei Sharky is like a second father to me. And so I started training sport karate. And then I got really passionate about Japanese martial arts, Japanese karate. So then I started training with Sensei Robert Young out of Kenseikan in Miami. And he teaches both Ariel Torres and Grace Lau, martial arts Olympians. So that's really, really cool. And that's kind of just what I focus on now. I only do traditional martial arts. I compete with Korean forms and Japanese forms. And for NASKA, I also compete in the traditional challenge. So I think that's covering all bases, right?
Well, for the most part, Gabrielle's very humble, so she's not going to tell you all of the impressive things. She's just going to tell you the backstory and all that. But Gabrielle is now she's Black Belt Magazine's #1 rated traditional forms competitor as an adult female in the sport. So that's a big deal. She's won NASKA overall grand championship. She's been on most of the big NASKA stages, US Open, Diamond Nationals, Warrior Cup, you name it. So she's a very accomplished martial artist. And on top of that, those of you tuning in on the Black Belt Magazine Facebook page, a lot of the social media posts that you see going out there are written by none other than Miss Gabrielle Dunn.
Wow.
So when I was, and a lot of people, especially just, kind of your casual Black Belt Magazine fan may not know this, but I actually came out to start working with Century Martial Arts, shout out Ghost Wave Master, and Black Belt Magazine at Oklahoma during my gap year in between my undergraduate education at Stanford and then now going to medical school. And basically they reached out to me. They were like, hey, if you're going to take a gap year, come hang out, work with us. And so I started that and helped out on the Black Belt Magazine side of things and absolutely loved my time there. But there came a point when it was time for me to go on to medical school after the application cycle ended. And we needed somebody to start doing a lot of the social media stuff. And I said, I have a fiance who is a martial artist that would be absolutely fantastic at that. And I'll admit that Gabrielle has been a lot better at the social media thing than me because Gabrielle, along with Cody, who's one of our new social media guys over at Black Belt, has gotten the page. What'd you guys get? Like 30 million viewers in a month?
Yeah,
That's crazy, right? So shout out to the Black Belt Magazine fam for helping us grow this community that much. That's so special. And Gabrielle played a big, big part in that. And so whenever you guys see a post come out there, a video, picture, something like that, just remember that this pretty face is the one who wrote it. And she's an accomplished martial artist to boot, right? And that's another thing that I think makes you especially qualified for your work with Black Belt is that not only are you in the sport karate scene, you're in the tournaments and you're able to win, but you are a traditional martial artist, even in the way you compete. You compete with traditional Korean forms and traditional Japanese forms, right? And so you have the traditional background as well as the sport aspect of it. And I guess now that I've talked a lot about you and bragged about you.
He's gushing about me.
Anything you want to add to that or just respond to?
I think I can talk a little bit more about Team AKA. I'm one of the captains of Team AKA. They're probably one of the biggest sport karate teams in the game right now as far as numbers go. So I'm super proud to be a part of that team. And there's also kind of like a side team called Team Sideswipe. That's more of their performance teams. And so we'll be able to go perform for the troops. I got to perform for the U.S. troops in both Guam and Hawaii, which is really, really cool. And they're kind of like their bigger performance group. They are also.
I was about to say you can't call Sideswipe a side team. Like Sideswipe's not some side hustle for Team AKA. No. Like the Sideswipe performance team is like the most prestigious martial arts performance team in the United States. You know what I mean? Not talking about competitively because Sideswipe doesn't compete. No. Team AKA is the competitive entity, but when it comes to going out and performing, I mean, Sideswipe made the finals of America's Got Talent back. It's probably a decade ago now, but still, like huge names have come from Sideswipe. Matt Mullins, Craig Henningsen, the list goes on and on, right? Even Micah Carnes, Ross Constam, who are out doing movies right now in the stunt world. So Sideswipe's not a side team. Let me clarify that. But go ahead, babe.
Yeah. So that was really cool. I even got to go perform in Kansas with Team Sideswipe. So yeah, I mean, Team AKA has brought me so many amazing opportunities, and hopefully I'll be able to go overseas again soon.
That's awesome. So we do have a question that came in the comments, and I will give priority to anybody that's tuning in live. If you drop a question, we'll answer that before we get to some of our questions that were submitted beforehand. So I see here, Ryan Wallace wants to know, how did you meet? So I'll let you give your side and then I'll give my side.
Okay. We have two different stories of the first time he met me and the first time I met him. So the first time I remember meeting Jackson, quote unquote meeting, not really, was when he was competing on stage at the DC tournament, Capital Classics. Mm-hmm. And I really don't remember meeting you beforehand. I just remember seeing you on stage and being.
I was unremarkable.
But I was totally mesmerized because it was my first NASKA tournament ever. So this was all very, very new to me. And I see this guy swinging this bow staff around at what looked like lightning speed. And I was just mesmerized. I thought you were a lot older than you actually were. I was only 12 and I thought he was like 16, 17, 18, but you were only 14 at the time. So that's my first memory of meeting Jackson. Now he has a different story if you want to talk about that.
Well, because that was not, we didn't meet. You seeing me on stage isn't us meeting. So
that's the first time I saw him. Okay.
Totally doesn't count. But the actual first time that we met, that was 2012 U.S. Capitol Classics in National Harbor, Maryland. Mm-hmm. And the actual time that we met was before the tournament ever started. It was on Friday. And Team AKA for years has had this culture where they've always had a big team. And so particularly when they come to U.S. Capitol Classics, which is right after their famous summer camp that all the Team AKA members go to, or the vast majority of them, they kind of do this big road trip up to DC and they all compete in this tournament. And so they would, big groups of these kids is what they were, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would room together, right? With some of the older kids kind of supervising. And it was just this really cool kind of culture that they had about the way they would come to the U.S. Capitol Classics. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we had some mutual friends. I think that the people staying in that room, I think it was like Cole Presley and Cody Sanders. I think it was like their group that was in that room. And Gabrielle was mutual friends with these people. And so I was friends with like Cole and Cody in that crowd. And so I was like, hey, you know, you guys hanging out, let's go grab some food or whatever, right? And so I come up to this room, and Gabrielle happened to be in this room, and I thought she was beautiful the first time that I saw her.
Braces and all.
Right. and as 13, 14-year-olds do, there was this game going around where we were like daring people to do stuff or whatever, and you got dared to sing. And you sang in this hotel room, and once again, I thought it was beautiful.
This story is so cringy.
It's not. It's true though. It's true. Like I'm not gonna get on here and lie like that. This is what happened, and so I thought that your singing was beautiful. I thought that you were beautiful, and I decided right then, even though I was too chicken to do anything about it, that like I wanted to get to know you better. Right, like 14-year-old me did not have the guts to just like make a move. You know what I'm saying? So I was like, okay, like I took note of you. And then I guess it was a few months passed before we actually like had our first conversation with each other. But that is the moment that we actually met, was 2012 U.S. Capitol Classics, which means that in August we will have known each other for 10 years, which is kind of crazy.
That's crazy. It goes by so fast. Now, I have another funny story if you guys want to hear it. The first time Jackson asked me for my phone number.
I actually don't remember this. I don't know this story.
Well, this is a very funny story. So I actually had a friend who trained with TWKA. I will not state her name. She stopped doing martial arts, but she had a very big crush on Jackson, right? So I was going to be the good friend and not, you know, I had a crush on him, but I was going to take a step back, you know, as good friends do. Look at us now. So we were.
I'm glad you didn't take a step back.
This was at Twin Towers, and a whole group of us had gotten dinner together after the tournament ended, and it was a big group of us. I remember Cole was there, my friend Maya was there, a few other people. We all sat down. Jackson sat down across from me, and I was trying to avoid eye contact.
That was probably intentional.
Because I would just like tremble every single time he looked at me. So that would be it would have been a dead giveaway that I liked him. And so after dinner, you were so cute. You kept trying to bring up little conversations. How did you do this weekend? How are you today? But afterwards,
I have game. That's not surprising.
He has game. And afterwards, we were just kind of huddling after dinner, and you come up to me and he goes, "It was so nice seeing you this weekend. Can I get your Snapchat?" And then I gave you my Snapchat. And then you said,
that's the most 13, 14-year-old thing I've ever heard.
And then you said, "Oh, can I also get your phone number so we can talk about Pokemon or something?" Because we had talked about Pokemon at dinner.
This is the most 14-year-old conversation I've ever heard.
It's such a sweet, innocent conversation that we had. But then we started texting. And
I take back what I said about having game. I got lucky that worked. That should not have worked.
But yeah, it's a very funny story. But that's how that went.
All right. Well, definitely, guys, keep dropping those questions down below. Again, karate stuff, personal stuff. This is a chill episode of the podcast. So feel free to ask any questions that you'd like. I am going to get to some of our previously submitted questions here. We're just going to go kind of in the order that I saw them. The first one comes from Mike Brume. Shout out to the whole Brume family for being fans of the show. And he's got a deep one here. Okay. So we're going to go. You can answer first, and then I'll follow.
Okay.
Who were your greatest rivals? Who were your favorite people to compete against in your early career? And what made y'all want to push through when you were in a more rough spot in your competitive career? So biggest rivals, particularly early on, but then kind of as your career progressed. And then how did you push when those rivals were maybe getting the best of you a little bit?
Dang, Michael, that is a loaded question. Okay, well, I'll start. I think early on when I was 12, 13, 14, when I was 12, 13, I was still competing in the underbelt division. So I was pretty much just taking those divisions. It's not as difficult as black belt. But when I did move up to black belt division, I was 14, and I was really good. I am really good friends with Mary Motto. She's one of my bridesmaids, but she's amazing. She's such an amazing competitor. But the fact that we were friends and she was so good, she really pushed me to train harder so I could catch up to her. So I think that was my quote unquote rival. I don't really like that term. I wouldn't say rival, just someone that I wanted to do well against. And then I think in my later years when I was just focusing on traditional, I'd probably say Melissa Bailarjan. Like she was kind of the traditional female coming up the ranks from juniors into adults. And I think the moment when I was able to do well against her and kind of hold my own, that's when I kind of was like, wow, I can actually do this. Because for the longest time when I was a junior, I thought, she was untouchable. There's no way I can ever be that good. And I trained my butt off and hey, things happened. So
that's awesome. So it's funny you bring up the Mary thing and how you guys aren't really rivals, right? Because I feel like from the outside looking in sport karate, you see rivalries all the time because divisions typically come down to the best and the second best or the two best or however you want to put it. And they're like always clashing against each other over the course of the season or a couple seasons or whatever the case may be, right? So I feel like it's really easy to paint this picture of there being these big rivals in sport karate, but we spend so much time around each other. I mean, you and Mary were teammates, and a lot of my greatest rivals in my career were teammates of mine or would become teammates of mine.
Yeah.
So if we're looking at it chronologically, like what Mike mentioned in his question, my earliest rival, well, I can't really call these two guys rivals because like I only beat one of them a couple times and the other one I never beat. And that was Ryan Wells and Dre Rice. Okay. Ryan Wells was the dominant traditional competitor in forms and weapons, representing Team Straight Up. He would later go on to represent Paul Mitchell. Dre Rice was always on Straight Up, and he was the CMX guy. So Straight Up for a while in that 1300 division had a stranglehold of traditional with Ryan Wells and of CMX with Dre Rice. Mm-hmm. And they were the top dogs when I first started competing. So they mopped the floor with me every time I showed up, right? And then eventually, that was 2006. By the time 2008 rolls around, I got my first win over Ryan in the runoffs in traditional forms and made stage at Diamond Nationals for traditional forms, which a lot of people don't realize because you see me as green stick guy. And so the fact that I had made it to the finals for the first time in traditional forms that throws people off. So Ryan Wells and Dre Rice were the two top dogs when I first started. By the time that I was actually good and was like capable of winning consistently, my first rival then was a teammate of mine, Ricky Morris. We were both on the Premier Martial Arts national competition team together. And back then it wasn't like students that had come from the premier schools that then competed for them. We were just competitors from everywhere that were sponsored by the Premier Martial Arts brand. And Lauren Carney coached that team. And so Ricky and I were both students of Lauren, and we would go back and forth, right? Early on, I was more of the fundamentalist, if you will. My form was more strike focused, which, a lot of people know me for my releases now, but my form was more basic back then. And Ricky had a lot of the body rolls, and he was known for this move where he could wrap the bow around his waist. And so because of his tricks, Ricky was difficult to beat early on. But over time, I was able to, get a hang of things and start beating Ricky. And really that was just perseverance, like me just going back in the gym and trying to better myself and make my strikes better and be more consistent with my releases and whatever the case may be. Around the time that I started winning consistently was when I started doing all the releases, and I started putting releases together in combinations and also balancing that out with my striking combinations with power and speed and all that, right? So you have the balance of the traditional side with also the tricks necessary to win. And so Ricky would have been that first major rival where we kind of went back and forth, but we were buddies, we were teammates. After that, when I was at the top of that 13 and under division, looking up into the 14 to 17 division and making that transition, it was Austin Crane, because Austin Crane was the guy who was on Team Paul Mitchell, and I hadn't gotten on the team yet. At the time, I was on Change the Game, which Premier Martial Arts just rebranded as Change the Game. Basically the same players for the most part, same coach. Lauren was still coaching that team. And so Austin was the guy where I was like, man, Paul Mitchell's got Austin. If I can just beat Austin, I can prove to Paul Mitchell that, like, they need me, right? And that's not actually how it works. But in my 13-year-old head, I was like, I got to beat Austin Crane. And Austin Crane, I feel like historically is a very underrated competitor. More people should talk about Austin Crane because, in my opinion, he's one of the all-time great comma competitors. He's definitely in my top 10, maybe even in my top 5 comma competitors of all time, right? So Austin Crane was that guy. So Austin and I had some good battles in that 14 to 17 division in my first couple years in 14 to 17. But by the time I was 15, 16 years old, and many people who are fans of sport karate know this, I mean, it was me and the Presley brothers going at it all the time. Reed and Cole both. Cole and I are the exact same age. So Cole and I in the division against each other. Then I'd meet Reed in the runoffs or on stage or whatever the case may be. So me and the Presley brothers had some great battles. Tyler Weaver was in that mix as well. And then when I was in the juniors, now in the adults, they split men's and women's. But when I was in the juniors, every time I'd make it on stage and the boys and girls were against each other, it was Sammy Smith.
Yeah.
Every time. And so Sammy and I had a great rivalry because it was almost every tournament. It was going to be Sammy and I on stage against each other. But, you know, I think to answer Mike's question about adversity, there's a lot more strategy in forms and weapons than what a lot of people realize. And I think that it's figuring out your matchup because, like, the form that I would use to beat an Austin Crane is very different from the form that I would eventually choreograph to beat a guy like Reed in a double bow form. And so I think there's big differences based on your matchups, and you change your choreography to reflect those matchups. And the biggest thing is put yourself in the mind of the judges, right? What are the judges going to be thinking about person A's form? And then what are they going to think about your form? And what can you do to make them perceive your form as better than competitor X, Y, or Z, right? Yep. I think that part of the strategy is huge. And that's something that I did every new season when I was going into a new age group or new people were coming into my age group and I had new competitors, new rivals, if you will. Those were the types of adjustments that I would make in the off season. And my dad and I would spend hours in the gym from late October until mid-January when Warrior Cup came around. And that's what we did. We were in the lab trying to figure out what was that strategy that was going to keep us one step ahead of the competition. Anything you want to add to that?
No, I think what you said was pretty good. Next question.
I actually got a text here live. Let's see. Philip Brumet just texted me saying that he's changing my name in his phone to Green Stick Guy, which is, I mean, that's how most people know me, right? If you don't take the time to hear them say Jackson Rudolph, you just see, oh, who's that guy with the green stick? And that's about it. But anyway, if you're more educated, you say the guy with the green bow. But if you're less educated, the guy with the green bow staff. Because apparently that's saying staff, as we have learned in the comment section numerous times.
Yep. We also have some questions in the comment section. If you want
what
to
do we
take
got?
Those.
What do we got?
Ryan Wallace.
Let's see. Let's not scroll too much. Do you have spectator workouts? So we'll get to some of that stuff later, but I want to get to some of the questions that we had that we got to get through because they were submitted beforehand too. Samuel Brumet, Mike Brumet's brother, and Philip Brumet's brother. The Brumets are popular on this episode. Sam wants to know favorite tournament that y'all both came away with your respective overall together. Which, I mean, this one, the first time it happened has to be the best one, right?
Yeah.
So,
Dixieland Nationals 2019?
Ooh, I think so. 2019 sounds right, yeah.
Yeah, fact check me if I'm wrong, guys. But Dixieland Nationals 2019, it was my first ever NASKA overall, and Jackson had one as well. So it was so special that not only was it my first, but my boyfriend at the time had also won. So that was a really, really cool time for us. And then we got to celebrate. We went to Disney World right after. So that was an awesome one.
And I remember that specifically because it was your first overall, and that was a big deal. But also because I'm pretty sure your division went first. And so then, like, all the pressure was on me because it's like you just won your first overall. So if I go out there and lose, well, then I ruined the perfect night. You know what I mean? So I remember, like, her winning and then me being like, okay, like, for her, I need to make sure that I go win this so that she doesn't have anything to be sad about tonight. But, yeah, that was definitely the best memory of us winning together because it was your first overall. Yeah. So. Let's see. This was another Instagram submit. Okay, so all of these opening questions were submitted by the Brumet family, so we're just gonna keep rolling through it.
Okay.
Let's see. Philip says, so Mike asked, what's your favorite competition memory of each other? Oh, wait, that is a different question.
Yeah.
Because Sam's asking favorite time that we won together. Mike is asking your favorite competition memory of me my favorite
Okay.
competition memory of you.
I have two. I have two really good ones.
Of course you do.
Okay. So the first one is more of like a funny one. I don't think you're going to like this one as much, but it was at AmeriKick one year, and you know exactly what I'm going to say. Jackson was on the daytime stage, and he was doing his form, killing it like always, and then his bow snapped in half. But does he stop? No. He just keeps going with these two sticks. And it was awesome. And if you watch that video, you'll see me in the background like freaking out. So that was a really fun one. I think my actual favorite one was probably, let me preface. So when I first started dating Jackson in 2016, he did not win overall for the first two tournaments that we were together. So I thought that I was bad luck.
Oh, you totally were. That was all your fault.
I was freaking out. I thought that I was bad luck for him. And so U.S. Open didn't go his way. But the year after that, U.S. Open 2017, you were in the adult division, obviously. And I got to see you win on U.S. Open stage. So that was a big one for me.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that my favorite one of yours was when you made stage at Diamonds, because you had talked about that for so long, and it was like such a big deal for you. And the first time you did it, that was 2019 or 18?
2018.
That was 18. Yeah,
because
that
a
happened.
late bloomer.
Yeah. You made it on stage at Diamonds, and then you won the next year at Dixieland.
Yep.
But what was funny is that was when the Kempo division was kind of this new thing, and you actually did an adapted like Japanese Kempo form, and wound up winning the Kempo division with the Japanese Kempo form, which was different than what most of the people in that division were doing. So you kind of like put yourself out there on a limb trying to see what you could make happen.
Yeah.
And it worked out. You won.
No, I took a chance.
And then you went on stage, and then you nailed your form on stage. And I also thought that was cool because my first time on stage at a NASKA tournament was Diamonds in 2008. And so 10 years later, for you to make it and it be your first time on stage at Diamonds, that was a really cool moment, just getting to watch you and how excited you were to do that.
It came off as excitement. I was so nervous. So nervous.
That's awesome. Let's see what else we got. Okay, so Philip Brumet, we're kind of going through the different levels of favorite moments here. But Philip wants to know favorite karate moment together. Just period, overall favorite moment. Is it different, or is it one that we've already talked about?
It's different. I think my favorite karate moments together, probably training before a big tournament. A lot of times over the summer, Jackson would come over. We'd train at my mom's martial arts school, Connecticut Martial Arts. And we would just have a great time pushing each other.
I think that's hilarious because I am not a fun person to train with. Like if I'm training somebody, that's something different. But if I am training, I go to like very scary places when I train.
Yes, he does, but I still enjoy watching it.
Well, thank you. I think that my favorite martial arts memory was at one point, this is going to surprise people. At one point, Gabrielle had this idea that she wanted to compete in traditional weapons. And there was a training session it was actually a new school that was starting up. And we went to this school and we trained. And I was helping Gabrielle choreograph her first traditional bow form. And we actually did finish an entire form. We choreographed an entire traditional bow form for her that she proceeded to never do.
I might do it.
But I still have the video on my phone. So that maybe we'll see Gabrielle come out with traditional weapons in the future. But that's my favorite memory, is just like getting to work together to create that, even though you still haven't done it.
Okay, you know what? You heard it here first. Jackson Rudolph podcast. Gabrielle Dunn is going to compete with a traditional bow staff form before 2023.
That gives yourself a long time.
I have to train it.
Okay, that's fair. We're going to let her practice, and then she can do it at a tournament. Let's see what else we got. We're moving to some non-Brumet questions now. So Brumet family, thank you very much for your contributions. But I now see that Savannah Augusto, she's down in the comments, and it's time for her questions. So she wants to know, I'm going to go from the bottom up here. This is a good one. What is the best training tip to take your kata to the next level?
That's a good one. I'm really big on video study. So I would do two things. Number one, I would record myself doing my kata full speed, full power, and then I would compare it to one of the best in the world, right? I don't know, Rika Usami, Sandra Sanchez. And I would see what I'm doing versus what they're doing and see if there's anything I could do to kind of upgrade it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of film study as well. I study film all the time, and also study film of your competitors, right? Particularly in a CMX division where you can change things and make adjustments. I keep feeling like I'm going to cough. Excuse me. So yeah, definitely in CMX divisions, know what your competitors are going to do. You can watch those videos over the course of several tournaments, follow trends. What do those competitors do when they feel like their back's against the wall? How big do they go? What do they throw? So that you can be prepared for that. So you never want to be in a position where you're caught off guard with somebody doing something new and crazy that you weren't ready to have an answer for. So on the CMX side of things, I think that's really important. But even in traditional, with kata, you can have a totally different kata ready, right? I mean, you select different katas based on matchups, right?
All the time. I mean, granted, I've just been doing Popperin for the past year and a half, but that's just because I've mainly just been competing against women, right? If I had to compete against, I don't know, per se, a man, I would probably do a different kata. So, yep.
Yep. That's a good answer. All right. So now let's go to next question. This is another one from Savvy. Another good one. Favorite kata to compete with and favorite to teach. So they could be different.
Oh, okay. This is a hard one. Oh gosh. Okay. Favorite kata to compete with is probably tied. I would say it's a tie between Kusanku and Popperin. I love both. My favorite kata to teach, this is probably a surprise because I don't teach this a lot, is Kurunfa. Obviously, I'm from a Goju-ryu background. That's a Goju form. It's so beautiful. It is a shorter form, but I feel like it's a very underrated kata.
So now I'm going to give mine because people forget that I did traditional forms. So when I started doing traditional forms, here's a little NASKA history lesson, right? When I started doing traditional forms was very different. I started doing traditional forms on NASKA in the age of Gabrielle Naga and John Su and Scott Wu and Will Cornell and these guys that put on a show with their forms, right?
Are you saying I don't put on a show?
Now you put on a show, but if you go back and you watch the John Su's at like the super low stances and a lot more ki-ing, and it was more of a spectacle than it was a traditional kata, right? I mean, really, any real traditionalists that watch those forms would call it a creative routine. That's what they were doing, right? Hybrid forms were very popular. The first form that I ever made it on stage with, when I made it on stage at the Diamond Nationals, it was traditional, but it was a hybrid between Seinchin and Impi. And we jokingly called it Impi Chin because I would do the opening section of Seinchin. And then after I did kind of those three horse stances coming forward, I would then basically transition and just run a modified Impi. And that was common practice. It was common practice to mix and match different forms and run them with this more performance-oriented style, as opposed to what WKF does and what NASKA now prefers, on average at least, which is the more true traditional rendition of those katas. Is that a fair way to describe that?
Yeah, no, that's accurate.
And so when I started coming up, that's what I grew to love. And a big part of the reason that I stopped competing in traditional forms was, number one, I'd moved into the adult division at that time, and I wanted to focus on being the best CMX weapons competitor that I could be. But also there had been a shift, right?
Yep.
Jarrett Liker kind of spearheaded that and made it to where WKF traditional forms were kind of the premier form on the circuit. And then from there, you saw guys like Ariel Torres and Joey Castro, now Mason Stillwell. You saw guys like that kind of take off. And then on the girls' side, people like yourself. And so you saw that style take off, which I don't have a problem with. I love watching that style of forms. Obviously, my fiance does it. So I'm not saying I don't like the WKF forms. It just isn't it's not what I grew up doing. And so I quit competing with my style of the more performance-based form, because it's like, if it doesn't have a chance to win, then I'm not going to do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that goes for a lot of current sport karate discussions. Competitors are going to do what it takes to win. Go ahead.
Yeah. I think I should teach him a kata. What do you think, guys?
Oh, my goodness.
I think I should. I think I would love to see you compete with a WKF kata.
I think that most people would love to see me compete, period, right? But no, most tournament now I'm wearing a suit instead of a uniform. But
also true.
We'll see how that plays out. I can't guarantee that I'll be doing a traditional kata in a division anytime soon. But to answer the question, my favorite kata to perform was always Goju Dai. I absolutely loved doing Goju Dai because in the performance style, when you could come back, you got into the really low back stance. Yep. You could hold the balance moves as you were doing the step overs. Tons of great opportunities to ki. I loved like the idea of the little like gun poke technique, right? Which I know is like an eye gouge or pressure point, right? So I love performing Goju Dai. And in fact, we're coming up on Compete Nationals next week. If you get on YouTube and you go to the Sport Martial Arts archives, just search like Jackson Rudolph 2010 Compete Nationals. I wound up winning the overall with my bow form for the first time that year in 2010. But I was also on stage running Goju Dai, which is like my all-time favorite form to run.
I've watched that form many a time.
Yeah, I loved Goju Dai. But because like now the WKF style is so prevalent, I would never teach that version of Goju Dai to somebody. I'd say, hey, my fiance is great at this. Why don't you talk to her? So when it comes to teaching kata, I mean, making up bow forms for people is like my favorite thing in the world. I could make up bow forms all day long. So, I mean, when it comes to teaching a kata, I'm not going to say a kata. I love teaching bow forms, period. Just making stuff up and kind of catering it to that competitor style. I love that. You know what I mean? So now we're going to let's go to some questions from the comments because we got 3 more submitted questions. So thank you, Savannah Augusto, for those submissions. Now I'm going to scroll through the comments and see what we got here. We got Jeannie Jones timing in. Been walking around my house trying to see which one of my smoke alarms is beeping. Oh, so yeah, Gabrielle does have a faulty smoke alarm that is in the room right now. So I apologize for anyone that keeps hearing that.
Sorry, guys.
But when the podcast goes on the road, sometimes you got to deal with that stuff. Let's see. So, babe, I'll let you speak to this one while I'm scrolling through finding some others. Philip asks a good one kind of on the personal side. What things have you learned from being in a long-distance karate relationship? I mean, just talk a little bit about that, some of the difficulties of that, and how we've managed it.
Okay. I think we're very lucky to be living in an age when we have FaceTime and text messaging. I think that's the biggest part of our relationship. I mean, we FaceTime how many times a day?
At least 4 or 5.
At least 4 or 5 times a day. So I think communication is obviously key. I think another thing you have to kind of learn and cope with is patience, right? Obviously, you're not going to see your partner every single day. It could be twice a month, once every other month sometimes. So just have faith and communicate with your partner, and hopefully it'll all work out.
I think it was beautifully said. Communication. Let your partner know what you're doing. Stay in touch with them. Don't let them go 6 hours without knowing what you're doing, right? Just communicate, right? Hey, I'm going to be in the anatomy lab for the next 3 hours. I'll call you when I get out.
Hey, I've got school from 9:30 until 8 p.m. Sorry, Jackson. which I do.
Right. And then still sometimes I'll be teaching and Gabrielle will FaceTime me and it'll swipe my Zoom away. And I'll be like, wait, student, stop. Let me bring you back because my fiance's trying to FaceTime me.
Sorry, guys.
But it's a welcome interruption. I'm okay with it. So for those of you tuning in live, feel free, drop those questions down below. Again, karate stuff or more of the relationship stuff. This is technically a Valentine's Day special, so feel free to ask whatever you like. Now we're going to go back to some of our previously submitted questions. And then we got a lot of bulk submissions. So this one comes from Shay Renee on Instagram. If y'all want to follow her, it's Shay_Renee, REN, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 E's on the end of Renee. So thank you, Shay, for submitting this. And we're going to do these 2 questions first, and then we'll go to the last one because the last one, I want it to be the history highlight for this week. And I'm sorry, guys, this week we're not going to have a video for history highlight. It'll be a discussion because that's another segment we always do on the show, but bear with me on that one. I'm doing my best here, okay? So this one's actually funny. Does Gabrielle ever practice the bow? Have you picked it up since that time that we made that form together?
Funnily enough, yes, I have. Why are you mouthing no? We do sometimes do bow staff seminars. My brother does bow at our karate school, so I'll help with that, and I'll kind of fiddle around with it. I'm like, oh, wow, this actually feels and looks pretty good. So I do pick up the bow occasionally, not as much as I know you probably would want me to.
That's true. You mentioned your brother doing bow. I remember like back early in our relationship, like giving your brother a private lesson on bow. And he actually, so Jared, her brother, has a trick that I never seen anybody do before. My first private lesson I did with him, he did this thing where he like put one end of the bow on the ground and like wrapped his leg around the bow and then like kicked it up in the air. I never seen. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
So at some point, Jared, if you're tuning in, actually, he's upstairs. So after the podcast, I got to see if I can get Jared to do that on video so I can like post it on my story or something, because I had never seen anything like it. So Jared was a good bow practitioner, and he still teaches it at the school some, like you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Jared definitely still does some bow, and he's pretty good at it too. I got to tip my cap to my future brother-in-law. So. So next one we've got okay, so this I assume this one's not for you. This one's for me. Have you ever broken your bow in competition on purpose for entertainment?
Every day.
On purpose?
Yep.
So people might think that I have done this on purpose before. It has never been on purpose, right? Eventually, no matter how well a bow is made, because Joe Greenhall makes my bows, he's the best in the business. I've trusted him to make my bows for almost my entire career. And, you know, Joe's bows, especially once we started doing this thing where we taper the bows a bit differently, he puts an extra layer of tape, an extra layer of laminate to really make those bows more durable. And since Joe started doing that, I went from where I would break 2 bows a month to now I only break a bow once every 4 to 6 months. So the longevity of the bows has improved tremendously, and those changes are reflected in the Jackson Rudolph signature series of products that you can find at centurymartialarts.com.
Ayo.
Shameless plug. But anyway, so when you actually see me break one in competition, it was just bad luck. You know, in competition, the adrenaline's going. I'm probably going a little bit harder than I'm going. I try to go as hard as I can when I train, but I guess there's always that extra push when you're in the ring from the adrenaline, right? And, you know, you hit it just right. There's a whole lot of force going up against the body there when you're popping a bow strike, and it just breaks. The one time you were talking about the time at AmeriKick, which I actually reposted recently. If you go on my social media channels, you'll see that I reposted that video. But the time that like everybody thought that it was on purpose was at Diamonds of 2019. So Diamonds of 2019, I won the diamond ring with traditional weapons, which was big. Like I love doing traditional weapons, so to win with it consistently is like one of the things that I get most proud of, is being able to do that. So winning that diamond ring with traditional weapons meant a lot to me. And then I was going to try to win 2 diamond rings in one night. And for the audience, if you have an opportunity to win 2 diamond rings in one night, you're not going to break your bow over your knee just because you feel like it, just because you thought it'd be funny, right? Like after that night show, everybody was like, did you do that on purpose? Like, that was so cool. I was like, no, I wanted to win. No, I didn't do it on purpose, right? So in NASKA rules, even though in my opinion, it shouldn't be a rule, if you break your weapon, you get disqualified, right? In 99% of cases that I've ever seen, the breaking of the weapon is not the competitor's fault. It's not something that the competitor does to endanger somebody else. But that's the reason the rule is that way. And so anytime that my bow has broken, it's a disqualification. So at Diamonds 2019, I go up there for CMX weapons. And I think I was defending champion. Did I win 2018? One of those years, right?
Yeah.
I'd won diamond rings in the past, right? And so I really wanted to get this and have 2 rings in one night. An opening strike combination, I throw an over the head strike and I feel it give, right? And any bow practitioners that have broken a bow before, you know what I'm talking about. It might not go all the way in half. You might not even be able to see a bend, but when you feel it crack, you know it, and you know that it's over at that point. And so that's what happened. I was doing the opening strike combo. I feel it go. And then I knew what had happened. So I was just in a front stance. So I just took the bow and slammed it over my knee to finish it off and said, well, I might as well make something entertaining out of this. And then I did kind of in a scream-a-stick-esque form with the 2 halves of the bow that were left. So no, I was not on purpose. A lot of people that night thought that it was on purpose.
You should have totally lied and be like, yeah, that was on purpose, guys.
No. It was not. It was not on purpose. And then, you know, and then I was totally in the wrong headspace because I finished that routine and obviously like the crowd enjoyed it because it was like random and crazy.
Yeah.
And then in the moment I started throwing the pieces of my bow into the crowd, not realizing that I could have impaled somebody. Thankfully, another competitor caught one of them. Dalton Chunky actually caught one of them. So anyway, but yeah, that was an interesting night show then. But no, anytime that you see my bow break in competition, that's never on purpose. That it just happens and you kind of got to live with it, right? So I'm going to take another look at the comments, see if any other new questions have come in. I haven't seen anything new come in. So now we're going to get to, this is the question that I'm going to kind of consider to be our history highlight part of the show, because it's going to make us take a little bit of a trip down memory lane. And I'm curious, because Gabrielle is not a weapons competitor. I want to hear Gabrielle's take on this before I give my answers. We have not discussed this beforehand. I have kept my answers secret because I feel like my answers are the right answers. And I want to hear what Gabrielle has to say.
Okay.
So,
all right.
Shay also wants to know, in your opinion, who are the top 3 weapons competitors of all time?
I feel like I'm not qualified to answer this. Okay.
That's why I'm making you answer.
Okay. Would it be biased if I said you? Can I say you?
No, that's illegal. You're disqualified from saying me.
Because I would say you.
No, that's
okay.
not.
Okay.
We're not going there.
That's fine. Goodness. I would say Matt Emig is probably up there. I'd only seen him compete, I think, once or twice when I was 12 or 13, and he's amazing.
Oh, that makes me feel old. I'm only 2 years older. That makes me feel ancient. I watched Matt Emig in person hundreds of times as a kid. But anyway.
Yeah, he's amazing. Gosh, I don't even know. I've always enjoyed watching Senegal compete. So watching him do his chain form has always been pretty cool.
You're saying that Senegal's chain form is one of the top 3 best weapons forms of all
I don't know. I feel like I shouldn't be answering this question. Oh goodness. Okay. Last one.
Y'all help her out a little bit. Drop some comments down below. Who are your top 3 weapons competitors of all time? And Matt was a good start. I'll give you Matt.
Okay.
You're doing well.
Thanks.
Okay. What else you got?
I'm thinking. Probably Kalman Choka.
Aha. Hey, see, now we're doing better. Kalman Choka, right? So we got Matt, we got Kalman. Who's your 3?
Senegal doesn't count.
Okay, you're counting Senegal. Okay, I respect that. Senegal won a lot of overalls, great competitor. I respect that. So I'll give you credit for going Senegal, okay? But now I'm going to give, in my opinion, the correct answer.
Okay, guys.
So I 100% agree with you on Matt and Kalman, right? Matt, greatest nunchuck competitor of all time.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the greatest nunchuck competitor of all time, you're one of the top 3 greatest weapons competitors of all time. Nunchucks is the weapon most synonymous with martial arts, right? Bruce Lee, nunchucks. It's like, it's that simple, right? And then the weapon that's probably second most synonymous with martial arts, thanks to samurai, is the sword, right? And the greatest sword competitor of all time is Kalman Choka.
Yep.
And so Kalman Choka obviously needs to be in that top 3. And then I'm a bow guy, so I got to throw a bow in there. And this is really hard for me, picking between Mike Bernardo, the father of modern bow, and Casey Marks Nash, right? Like, for me, making that decision is next to impossible.
Yeah.
I was never fortunate enough to get to see Bernardo compete in person. I've only been able to watch videos. I was lucky enough to see Casey Marks compete in person because she had a marathon of a career.
Yeah.
And so I was able to see some of the later moments of her career. And they both did so much for bow. Like when Mike Bernardo was on the show, and if I'm going to suggest that you watch every episode of this podcast, but if you pick any one episode to watch, go watch the Mike Bernardo episode, because the fact that I was able to get him in an interview for that episode, like it blows my mind, right? It gives me goosebumps, because like that's how big of a Mike Bernardo fan I am. And when I had him on the show, like I didn't even realize he innovated a lot of the ways in which we strike. Like the way that you strike in sport karate bow staff, a lot of the intricacies of that were perfected and innovated by Mike Bernardo, which is huge. And then Casey, in the more modern era, was the first person to do a release on stage in a bow form.
Yep.
I hit the iconic like knife hand low block pose with the bow in her hand before the swing. Was part of iconic sync performances like the one that she did with Wayne Douglas, and then what everybody knows, the one that she did with Lauren. She was also responsible for training Lauren, who's also one of the great bow competitors of all time, and training Wayne Douglas. And of course, Mike Bernardo trained Casey. So it's like, when you try to get me to pick between those two, I can't do it. So I'm going to cheat. I'm going to go top 4, and I'm going to do a tie for that 3rd spot and go with the bows. Okay. And then on the comma side of things, I feel like there's not enough of a gap between the greats, right? Like I feel like in nunchucks, it's Matt, and Matt's like definitely that guy. Sword, Kalman's definitely that guy. You got people that make a good run for it. Obviously, Caitlin Deschelle, statistically, with her sword performances, are up there, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then in commas, I feel like there's a lot more parity amongst the great comma competitors, right? In my opinion, the guy that I got to see in person, my comma goat is Rudy Raynon. I loved watching Rudy Raynon. But I mean, there's so many other. I never got to see John Valera and Mike Chan in person. No. They were the great comma competitors of their era, right? If I'm not mistaken, John Valera taught Rudy, right?
Yeah, I didn't even get to see Rudy compete in person. All of the older guys I've only seen online YouTube. I was lucky enough to be able to see Matt compete in person.
Right.
But everyone else, never.
Well, and then it's also skewed because it's like I didn't get to see the previous generation. I saw the generation right before me, and where Rudy was kind of the guy, Mark Canadazato in that conversation as well, among those comma guys. But then now, like the new generation, I've competed against a lot of them. And you don't, when you're competing with people, you don't really appreciate their personal greatness because you're so focused on just trying to go compete, right?
Yeah.
And I've competed against great comma competitors, all-time great comma competitors.
Yeah.
Mackenzie Emery, Michaela Johnson, Tyler Weaver, Cole Presley. Like I've competed against a lot of great really comma competitors. And so it's like with commas, I feel like it's really hard to narrow that down. I think most people, as we look at the comments, I see Daniel Turner saying JV for John Valera. I'm pretty sure that's Jeff Dawson's answer too. Jeff, sorry to put you on the spot, but I see you in the comments saying Casey. But yeah, I feel like Jeff, because Jeff trained under John Valera as well. So I feel like John Valera is probably Jeff's comma goat. But Jeff, if you can chime in the comments there, I'm curious to hear that too. But there's so many other names you can bring up for commas. You know what I mean? I feel like with Chucks, it's like pretty clear. Sword, it's pretty clear. And then with Bo, it comes down to like pick your goat.
And
you know what I mean?
As soon as we said that I can't pick Jackson, I immediately just stopped thinking about Bo staff, but I should have thought of Casey Nash. Yeah.
Yes, you should have.
Yeah.
You're in trouble because you didn't think of Casey Nash.
See how he treats me, guys? Oh my gosh.
No, you don't understand. Like I am a huge fan of good Bo, right? Like as someone who does Bo myself, I love watching. And I remember Quebec Open a few years ago. I think it was 2017. I was in college and I couldn't go that year because I had an exam on like that Friday. So I literally could not get to the tournament, right? And Casey Nash competed at that Quebec Open.
We were watching
and I didn't get to watch it.
We were watching it live. But we weren't there in person.
Exactly. But do you remember how when Casey didn't win the weapons division, I was like,
he was livid.
It was one of the most blasphemous things that I've ever seen in my life. I was like, it was Casey.
Yeah.
Casey wins weapons. That's what happens. Like, that's what should happen. Something is wrong in the world if Casey Marks Nash isn't winning weapons. But I think she won forms anyway, so it was okay. It wound up being okay. But anyway. So now we're going to take a look at the comments here, see what some other people are saying. Chrissy Boyer says, sweet couple, we love you. Love you too, Boyer family. Thanks for the shout out. Let's see. Jeannie Jones said she can totally say you. Well, thank you, Miss Jeannie. I appreciate that. Philip Brume says Casey Marks Nash. But Philip, you're in trouble because you didn't spell it right. You don't spell Casey with a K. It's with a C. Come on, man. Daniel Turner saying John Valera. Absolutely.
Yep.
Ryan Wallace bringing in Bruce
really
Lee.
Yeah.
Of course. Let's see. Okay, so Savannah Augusto chimes in with her top favorite comma competitors, Rudy and Mark. We mentioned Tyler. Haley Glass is somebody that's kind of working her way up to getting in that conversation, right? New member of Team Paul Mitchell. Well, it's not super new anymore, but Haley definitely working her way up there. And then Jeff chiming in saying John Valera and Rudy for me. And then Tim Conkle. Tim Conkle is underrated. Oh, Vince Johnson. Vince Johnson is another one of my all-time favorite competitors.
I don't think I've ever seen Vince Johnson. Am I in trouble?
Yes, you haven't seen. You have not seen the Vince Johnson comma form and the Hakama, and he takes off the straight up gi, and then I think it's like Matt Emig and Marcel Jones do the aerials in to give him his commas at the French Open. It's like one of my favorite videos that exists.
Okay, well, after the live, you'll have to show me.
I was about to say, we need to be wrapping up this podcast soon because I need to go educate my fiance on some legendary sport karate videos. Let's see what else is jumping in here. Jeff Doss, still crazy that Casey never won a weapons diamond. That is crazy, yeah. So Casey, but a lot of it was because back in that era, they combined the men's and the women's weapons diamond ring into one round. And so it was just everybody going at it. So in that era, you had other greats like Mike Chat and John Valera, of course. You also had guys like Richard Brandon at times. So that there was a lot of male competitors that would have made that road a little bit tougher too. But you also had some great female competitors that overcame it. I mean, Ming Lu. Ming Lu was able to win several diamond rings, I believe, in weapons, right? So yeah, it is crazy that Casey never won a weapons diamond ring, but she did win a forms ring and a fighting ring, which is really, really cool. I think she won a couple of forms rings, actually. You might have to fact check me on that. We should do an episode where, like, I just quiz somebody over all of the Diamond Nationals records, because it's like one of the only record systems that is still available on the internet. You go to diamondnationals.com, you can click on the past champions link, and you can see all of them, which I think is really cool. I think there's more tournaments that should be doing that. Jeff Doss says, yeah, Ming Lu, absolutely. Yeah, Jeff says, get on YouTube now, Gabrielle. And that's what we're going to do. So that covers our history highlight, just a little discussion of some of my all-time favorite weapons competitors, and letting Gabrielle struggle a little bit to think of them, since Gabrielle is not really a weapons person.
Listen, that's your forte. I'm all about the traditional forms. I'm sorry, guys.
And because you're all about the traditional forms, that brings us to the hashtag JRP challenge for this week. Post a video of you practicing a traditional kata. Post a video of you doing it can be a section of your form. It can be you doing drills in preparation for traditional. You could even film a video of you competing at the Compete Nationals this coming weekend in the traditional forms division, and post that up. All you have to do, tag me, tag Black Belt Magazine, and put hashtag JRP challenge on there so that I can find it. And if you fulfill that challenge, there's a chance that if you win, I'll feature you on the next episode of the Jax Rudolph podcast. So next week, I will be in California at the Compete Nationals. There will not be an episode next week. So you guys will be getting episode 92 after the Compete Nationals, when I'll be doing a whole post show talking about the winners, how everything went down. And I might do another top 10 countdown. For AK Warrior Cup, I did a top 10 countdown. I think I'm going to do the same thing for Compete Nationals. If you like that idea, drop those comments down below. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Don't forget that JRP challenge. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you hit that share button, drop some likes. Gabrielle, any last words for our audience?
We're done already?
It's been almost an hour.
I think you should invite me back on the show soon.
Okay, well, hey, if you guys want to see Gabrielle back on the show more often, go ahead, drop those comments, tag Gabrielle, let us know that you want to see more of her beautiful face. And this has been another Valentine special episode of the Jax Rudolph podcast. I'm your host, Jax Rudolph. This has been episode 91, and I'll see you next time.